Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Chakra Meditation Podcast. I'm Rosanne, your host, and today I have a guest that I think is going to be really useful. I think we're going to get some beautiful wisdom from Heather Stewart. And Heather is a coach and a transformation facilitator. And has I know because I've looked into it, lots of experience, lots of wisdom, and specializes in helping forgive me if I'm wrong and correct me if I'm not, women in midlife women, of which I am one. And so I feel like this is going to be very interesting, and I think we're going to be quite aligned on a lot of things. So I look forward to talking to you. So thank you and welcome, Heather.
Thank you. I'm glad that we got this perfect opportunity to talk. I mean, we took a couple tries to get at this, but I always think that it happens when it's supposed to happen,
Exactly,
right?
exactly. And it's interesting that the reason why we had to reschedule was because I was in overwhelm.
Yes.
Anybody who's been following my progress and knows where I'm on my mailing list or whatever knows that I'm in the middle of a massive renovation of an old house, and it is all very overwhelming, and things just get too much sometimes. So yeah, I feel that very much that the overwhelm, I think, is something that everybody feels, and I don't think it's just me, and I don't think it's just my situation, but it feels like life is running at about a million miles an hour at the moment. Everyone's going, I can't believe that we're in halfway through the year already. Like it's just going so fast. And there's something about that that also brings in this sort of panic, kind of like, oh my God, I've only got so, where's the time going? And I think also when you get to midlife, because proportionately, time just goes faster. It's as simple as that. When you're
Yeah.
little, a weekend can feel like a month, but in the school holidays, 8 weeks used to feel like forever. And now 8 weeks just goes in a flash of an eyelid because it's just the way it goes, isn't it?
Well, but if you and I've had conversations about this very thing. I love that you said that because I was trying to figure out for a long time, like, why does it feel like time goes faster when you get older? And when you think about it, when you're young, 2 months is a large percentage of
Yeah.
your life. But as you get older, you have so many years behind you. You're like, a month is like a blip and
Yeah.
it's gone.
Yeah.
And one of the ways that, I mean, I feel like overwhelm is and hearing you, it's coming into my mind that it's this feeling like we need to be in control of what's happening.
Mm.
So if the more you try to control everything, the more you're going to feel overwhelmed,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
And that's not to say you should just like throw your hands up and let it all just forget it. I don't care. You still want to pay attention, but I feel like sometimes the overwhelm is trying to control the things you don't really need to control,
Yeah,
you
no,
know?
it's true. And I think that the other thing that sticks out for me about this time in life and midlife is obviously the big elephant in the room of menopause for women,
Oh,
where
yeah, baby.
where I feel like, and this is, I don't think I'm uncommon in this, is like one's tolerance levels for the BS in life. You just don't have the tolerance. You don't have the, I don't know, you do have the bandwidth, but you just like, I don't have the time to deal with this BS.
And it's interesting. Like, I think that because I'm 10 years post now, believe it or not.
Mm,
And I was talking with a holistic naturopath. Like, I don't, she was I think she was a naturopathic doctor this week who specializes in menopause. And we were talking about all of the things because she's trying to develop a program to help people.
wonderful.
And I was telling her, like, and it's still true. You go to your doctor and they're like, oh, just calm down. And my doctor is a woman, which was interestingly.
Oh,
And what I said to her was, I want you to remember this conversation when you hit menopause because
I'm so glad you said.
Right?
Yes.
Because it'll maybe tweak
Absolutely.
to her, but a lot of things do change for women. And it's like you're going through puberty again,
Hmm.
and but you have way more responsibilities,
Yeah.
way more expectations upon you,
Hmm.
and way more things that they never told you would happen to you,
Mm.
you know. And a lot of them are just dismissed as, oh, that's just that. And I'm like,
Mm.
no, this is a real thing happening to people. And it does impact you. It doesn't make you I feel like because sometimes men are like, oh, I don't want to talk about this. They're like, she's just going crazy right now.
Yeah.
But it's it's more like, because it's a natural process, the more you can understand what's happening, the
Mm.
more awareness you have around it, the more that you can, well, you can't stop it, the more that you can understand and adjust what's happening. So you were feeling overwhelmed. You're like, I can't do this right now. I'm like, I'm not going to be upset about that. Like, I applaud you for saying, I don't have the bandwidth. I'm like, because I talk a lot about self care. It's like,
Yeah.
this was you stepping up and going, this isn't appropriate for me right now. I'm like, okay, I honor that in you. And I think about all the things that happened to me when I was going through menopause. So I've been teaching yoga for over 20 years. I've been a meditator for like 25 years. I know my inside self really well, and I'm like pretty chill most of the time. And one day, my beautiful husband, the kindest man in the world, did my laundry, brought it upstairs in a basket, and I was so mad that I kicked the laundry basket across the room. Like, that's not normal, right? So
Mm.
it was just, and he's so smart. He looked at me like some men would go, what's your problem? Then they'd be upset and angry, and then a fight would ensue. I'm
Yeah.
convinced that most people get divorced around menopause because
Yes.
they don't, like, there's just a misunderstanding of what's going on. He was so smart. He looked at me and he said, I'm just going to go to bed. So he went to bed. And I just sat there going, what? Just because I didn't let it spiral. I sat down and I just let this burning inside of me, and I was trying to like step out of it. It's really hard to step out of and
Yeah.
observe it. And I'm like, the next morning I said to him, I'm sorry that happened. Like, I took ownership for it.
Hmm.
Said, I'm sorry that happened. I don't know what that was. There was a crazy lady living inside of me and I couldn't stop her. And thank goodness you didn't try to talk to her, because I wouldn't have been able to control what she said,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And it's almost like a little momentary insanity. And I think that, well, I think our tolerance decreases because we recognize that life is short, we have stuff to get to. And I mean, especially if you have goals in your life, if you have
Yeah.
dreams in your life, you have stuff you want to get to.
Yeah.
And this stuff is happening to you. You're like, I need to deal with this stuff happening to me. And I still have all this stuff I want to do.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
the conversations that need to happen are, you're not crazy, you're not alone, you're not weird, you're not, losing your mind, which
Mm.
I think some people
Yeah,
think.
community really, really helps in
Yeah.
talking with other women about your experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And like the other day, I was having a bit of a spiral, and I wasn't even like sort of going crazy. I was just trying to really get my point across. And my darling husband, who is usually this very patient and loving, said, "Why are you being so hysterical?" And that one word,
Oh no.
oh my God, he lit that fuse. Imagine. You don't know. And I actually I walked away from the situation and I went back and I said, you need to understand that that word is really triggering to most women. And
Yes.
you may not have liked my response, but I did not like yours either.
Right? Yeah. Sometimes
Oh,
it is just one word and like your hair lights on fire and
yeah.
you become this insane human being. And
Yeah.
like, I've watched people that I know. I have a former friend who um I was witness to her nuclear explosion and she was not aware. Like she even denies it now that it happened.
Mm.
And I think, wow, your husband just sat there and let it let it happen. I'm like, do you realize I had trouble watching it? Do you realize
Mhm.
that he let that happen and just let you kind of unleash upon him and then knew that you would calm down? But if you don't, I feel like I think part of the process that's really important for people, um, and I'm not saying you have to do yoga. It was just, that's just my way into the world is you really need to know yourself. Like I
Mhm.
recognized that's not my normal. I mean, I recognize that that's something different. Something is happening. Something that's happening that's unusual. And no, I'm not bleeding. No, I don't have some test you can do because even when they do the hormone test, it doesn't really tell you anything. Sometimes they'll say, "Oh yeah, you're in menopause." I'm like, "Okay, but that doesn't tell you what's going to happen to you."
No.
So, I think that having a really good sense of your internal life and your internal world and yourself helps you say, "Oh, this is something's happening right now," and helps you communicate it, right?
Mm. Mm.
So maybe not in the moment, because like I said, I had to not speak to my poor husband until the next day when I said, okay, this is what happened. This is what
Mm.
was going on with me. It wasn't you, because I wanted him to know, like it had nothing to do with him doing my laundry. It had absolutely nothing to do with anything you were doing. It was all this.
Yeah.
And um, also because it helps them to understand what's going on and how, because men just are problem solvers, right? That's their
Yeah.
nature.
Yeah.
So
They
that they're
want to
trying
keep
to figure
up.
out how to fix it. I'm like, you can't fix this. This is your challenge, is to sit and support this,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The poor
Exactly.
guys, the poor guy. Like I feel for them because they
Yeah.
don't understand, and they have their own stuff going on. Nobody ever talks about andropause and what
Yes.
happens in andropause. I feel really bad for them because
Yeah.
we're women are talkers, right? We like to
Mhm.
talk about this going on and that going on. And I was a massage therapist for 14 years, and I would tell everybody, all of my ladies, this is what's going on. And this is because some of them were young, some of them were older, and the older ladies would give me wisdom that I could pass on to the younger ladies. Felt like
Mhm.
part of my job was to make it normal to talk about the weird stuff that happens to you. And so you don't feel like you're alone and crazy. But men, they don't talk and
Mm.
they try to hide the changes that are happening for them
Yeah. I
because
think on the
somehow it
whole.
makes them less of a man.
Yeah, but it's interesting. Again, I'll talk about my husband who
Mm,
is part of a couple of men's groups.
mm,
They are absolutely opened up to talking about their stuff, and they have structure around it because men like structure and it's,
yes.
the format, and they all get together and they do. But it is so good to see these men talking. So it's not, it is possible. That's what I'm saying. And
Yeah.
it's just that men have to be open to it. And I think when they are opened to that as a potential, it's a hugely empowering and positive thing. Um,
Right.
so yeah, but it is difficult to sort of sometimes just get over that hump of getting to the other side. And most men sort of tarry-diddle around in the the sports and the beer kind of arena until they get over the edge and actually start talking about what it is to be a man and how it feels to be a man and all of the issues that they have. And one of these days I will find I talk to a lot of men on this podcast, but I think it's really important actually to address those issues that men have. And as you say,
Mm-hmm.
we don't talk, women have this wonderful, very commonly known biological situation called perimenopause and then menopause. And it's out there very clearly, but for men, not so much. So, yeah, we need to hold them up a little bit as well because the men
Yeah.
are finding it difficult as well. And
Yeah.
I think that's not to
And
be.
especially like you said, men, it's the beer and the sports and, girls and whatever cars. But um, if they don't have a way to speak about it, and if they define themselves by being manly,
external
Eh,
thing. Yeah,
yeah,
the
then
world
they're
is.
like, oh my God. And they want to keep it secret. Even some women want to keep things secret that are
Yeah.
going on with them. And I think it's because they feel like nobody understands. But I remember I was with a therapist. So my granddad, when he passed away, this was probably 15 years ago. 2 years later, I was still, and I didn't know it at the time. I was also in perimenopause. I didn't even know there was a thing at the time.
Yeah.
And 2 years later, I called it emotional incontinence. I still would just randomly start crying every time I thought of him because my granddad was so important to me. And I was going to a therapist and he started telling me, this. He goes, you know, this is normal and you're not the only person. And I'm like, what? Like, I thought I was the only person in the world who was having these problems. And he's like, yeah, sorry to break your bubble, honey. But
You're not alone.
so when you realize that, and maybe it makes you feel special to think you're the only person, but I just felt alone. I just felt alone. And when he said that, I'm like, well, thank goodness, because then there's people who understand, like you think nobody understands. And when you find that community of people, and not every woman who's gone through that is going to be your people, right?
Yeah.
It's like their energy. Oh my goodness, I'm listening. Do you know who Carolyn Mace is?
Yes, I love
I'm
calories.
listening to her audiobook right now, and she's such a good lecturer. I mean, she's so to the point and just cuts away all the crap. And she's like, people who are not aligned with your archetype, you're not going to like them, and they're not going to like you. It's nothing personal. I'm like, right, yeah, that's good. So, but
Yeah.
we all have similar experiences in life. Like we've
Mm.
all been children. We've all been, had to go through growing up and do all those things. I can't remember what the four base ones she has. The child, the saboteur, the prostitute, which is doesn't mean you're a prostitute.
Yeah.
And
The
there's
Aphrodite
another one.
sexual
Yeah.
side of you. Yeah. Yeah.
But she said you all have those. So you all have that in common. You've all gone through some version of that. So you all have an understanding of another person at some
Yeah.
base level. And I'm like,
And it's lovely because whilst we all have these phases and we all go through very similar experiences, we in ourselves live a completely unique life that nobody else ever has or ever will experience. And our unique combination of experiences and programmings and the things that have happened to us make us different. But when we find those commonalities, and there are so many
yeah,
commonalities, there's a beautiful sort of duality, I guess, in the fact that we are separate and unique, yet we are all the same. And there's a comfort in both of those things because feeling like, yeah, I'm the only one who's lived my life. And from my perspective, I'm the only one who's seen life through my eyes. But also, there's so many shared experiences and emotions and patterns that we can find with other
right.
people
Well,
that
and it's funny because I'm the oldest of four children. So there's
mm,
the whole oldest child thing.
yeah,
But also, um, all four of us are so different,
yeah,
but
yeah,
but but the same, but very different.
yeah,
And even in our views of the world and how we operate in the world, but we have a very common, like when we make a comment that nobody else would understand, the other three are like, oh yeah, I
yeah,
totally understand that,
yeah,
because of we grew up in the same house. But you, like you said, you grew up in the same house, so we're all growing up in the same house. The whole planet is growing up in the same house if the planet is our house, but we all have a very different experience of our house,
yeah, yeah,
right?
absolutely, completely. And so let's bring it back to what you saw. I feel like we could
Mm,
just chat like this forever and ever.
I know.
So let's get to the sort of a little bit more technical side of things. So how long have you been being a transformation facilitator and a coach? Because obviously
S-
you've got a history of
right.
yoga and all
Yeah.
that
It's
stuff.
interesting because in some ways I want to say my whole life,
Mm.
because I started I did the career thing. I was a CPA, chartered accountant,
Mm.
for 15 years. I was a senior director of finance. I had the career. I was successful, and I had the company car and the stock options. But I was in a podcast yesterday. I was bored, bored, bored. I did not enjoy accounting at all. I was just, it was easy. It was easy for
Mm.
me to do. What I enjoyed were the people. And I, I, I had this VP come, one senior vice president come into my office one day and he said, you know, this office feels more like it should be HR, not senior director of accounting. I'm like, yeah, that's that's okay. Because I had a lava lamp and like I never turned on my fluorescent lighting. And the mail guy would stop and sit down for 20 minutes to talk to me about life. And I enjoyed these conversations that came through my office. And one day a couple of things happened. So this is when I started my journey into the inner world of Heather. I started taking yoga after work because I was stressed, because I was working 12, 14 hours a day at a desk at a job that was not really, didn't really align for me. Like, just because something is easier for you doesn't necessarily mean that's what you're meant to do. You know what I mean? So I um, was rushing, driving very fast through the busy city to get to yoga. I was like, I've got to get to yoga and relax. And I was driving through this intersection, this very busy intersection, and I'm thinking about yoga, and there's a lady crossing the road in front of me, and I'm like honking and yelling, so yogi, right?
Yeah.
Yelling, you're in my way. And I'm like, are you trying to get killed? And when I kind of glanced up, I'm like, oh my God, my light is red. So I was driving through a red light. There was a pedestrian crossing. There were cars coming. And I'm like, I had no idea that the light was red. And that was like a big kick in the face to me. I'm studying yoga. I'm doing this. I'm such a cool person. I'm like, oh my God, I almost killed someone.
Yeah.
I didn't kill them. Nobody killed me. I got to yoga somehow. And I said to my yoga teacher, I told her what happened, and she said, wow, that's interesting, isn't it? That was all she said. So then I did my yoga class, and I'm like, and it's cycling in my head what's happened. I was
Mhm.
like, this is something wrong. This is something wrong. So it took me a few months, but I quit my job. And full transparency, I quit my job, I sold my house, and I got divorced. All at the same time.
Wow, wow, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because, and when I'm coaching people and when I'm talking to people, I say, don't do what I did. That was the right thing for me.
Mm.
Right.
Mm.
And it wasn't like it was an overnight thing. It seemed like it was an instantaneous thing, but it had been an accumulation of something's not working, something tipped over the edge. And I was like, okay, I have to take
Yeah.
action now or choose this life forever.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel you.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I went to India
Oh, mm,
actually for 3 months.
good
I
move.
came back after 3 months because I promised my gran that I would come back for Christmas. So when your gran asks you to come back for Christmas,
Come
you
on.
must do it, right? So so my grandparents were from Nottingham and very British, and you just did what they told you to do.
Course.
So
Good grandparents. They will keep you
yeah,
in.
yeah. So and I went traveling with a fellow yogi who I had come to know, and we had become friends. Fast forward 20 years later, he is the beautiful husband that I have now.
Mm.
Yeah, our 20th anniversary is this year. But yeah, I just knew that I needed to really take radical action for my life if I was going to live the life that I felt like, well, I was intended for.
Mm.
And I knew it involved people. So I became a personal trainer because I was like, wellness is super important. I'm studying yoga, started teaching yoga. I opened my own yoga studio. I became a personal trainer. I went back to school for 2 years and became a massage therapist. Wellness, wellness, wellness. I need to help people understand how to take care of themselves because they have these jobs that are not going to take care of them. Right.
Mm.
And then in 2021, I had a stroke.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was in the hospital going, are you questioning the neurologist? Are you sure? Do you know how
I
healthy
think
I
that,
am?
well, yeah, it's exactly.
Do
That's
you know
very
what I've done
brave.
over the last 15 years to make myself healthy? This is not
Yeah.
possible.
Yes, exactly.
And finally, I just had to, I had to surrender. This is how I put it. I surrendered to what was happening, but I did not give up on my purpose. So I said to myself, Heather, the doctors are really smart. Let them do their jobs. I said, okay, I will do that. And it was COVID, so no one was allowed to visit me because I was stuck in the emergency room for 3 days
Mm,
because there was no beds. So I'm on a cot in the emergency room. It's Halloween.
God.
Thankfully, they put me in a cubicle, so I had a curtain. But life was crazy outside of this cubicle. There were policemen and prostitutes that they'd brought in. There were people yelling. There was drunk people. There was scared people, like people had brought their parents in who had hurt themselves, and their parents just wanted to go home. Like this older man, I could just hear him saying, "I just tripped. It's okay. I can just go home." Like you can just hear there's fear.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, okay, universe, I'm here. You have my attention. You have my full undivided attention, because it had given me double vision, so I couldn't do the escape into the scroll of the phone.
Okay.
So I had to sit there for 3 days quietly,
Wow.
listening and paying attention. I'm like, okay, universe, what's the deal? Why am I here? And the message was pretty clear. It's like, yes, Heather, you are doing a great job, but it's too small. So I had to really so I was looking at what was happening for me. So yes, I was physically healthy. I had taken care of myself. I was emotionally healthy because I thought, I'm pretty positive here. I don't think I'm going to die. I'm pretty sure I'm going to
Mhm.
live. I'll let them do their job. I'm in the hospital. It's a good place. And I'm actually happy, believe it or not. I'm pretty happy right now. It could
Okay.
be better, but I'm pretty happy right now. I'm seeing what's going on. Um, a friend of mine, like I had the relationships that I have built were really amazing. A friend of mine found out what happened, knew I couldn't see properly. So she messaged everyone she knew and anybody she didn't know that she knew me, and told them what happened and told them to send me voice messages. So I
So,
had a phone full of voice messages. And like it still gets me a little.
oh, wow.
Um, I messaged my clients to tell them that I'd had a stroke and I was in the hospital. So my job, they're like, "Oh my God, Heather, don't worry. Can I buy a gift card?" Like they knew that if I wasn't working, I couldn't earn money. So they wanted to find a way to support me. So like my financials were fine, my occupation was fine. And I was like, okay, this is my spirit journey. So what's the messaging? So I had everything. This is like what I realized people needed. So when they hit a bump in the road, they they didn't crash. If this had happened to me when I was an accountant, I might have died
Yeah. Yeah.
and I would have crashed really hard. But the life that I had built was supporting me so that when I hit this bump, I'm like, okay, what's the lesson? Instead of, oh my God, tragedy, I'm like, what's the
Yeah.
lesson? What's the lesson?
Lesson.
And the lesson was this thing that you've learned, you have to take it out and help people.
Mhm.
So that's what I'm like, okay, coaching, coaching. I was business coaching at the time for health and wellness people because of my business background, and health and wellness people are so floaty sometimes. I'm like, yeah,
Yes.
there's got to be some actual business stuff going on here if you want to get paid. So, so it just had to expand to the whole life. So it's like I look at your whole life. We look at your whole life, and where is it right now in your whole life that's really dragging you down? And it's different for everybody. And what can we do to help bring that? If you start supporting one of those things, the rest of it just rises automatically. Like if you're sick and physically unwell, when you start taking care of that, everything else just floats back up to the surface, right? Speaking of menopause, I'm having a hot flash. Let me just take my jacket off.
Oh, yeah. I understand.
Yep. I'm 10 years and I still get hot flashes,
Yeah.
right? This was an argument I had with my doctor. But
Mm.
so, and then the transformation facilitator came. It was very interesting that I went to see this gentleman in Florida. I was visiting a friend in Florida, and he channels uh, a group he calls the Collective.
Hmm.
So I went to say, I'm going to go have a session with the Collective. So he's there, and I have a friend with me. and we're kind of taking turns talking to the collective because the collective said they would only talk to her if I was there. I said, okay, that's weird. And he thought it was very weird because he'd never done two people at once. So at one point, they said to me, "You're really good at what you do." And I said, "Oh, cool. Can you tell me what it is?" They said, "No." I was like, "Come on,
Right.
you guys." So I was like, okay, whatever. I read Akashic records. So I was used to the Akashic record readers not really giving me the answer I wanted.
Yeah.
They just give you what you need. So later, about a week later, this gentleman, Rick, he messaged me on WhatsApp. He said, I was really uncomfortable and curious as to why they wouldn't tell you. So I asked them on your behalf. And apparently, what they said was, I was there to help the other person transform one of their beliefs. And if they had told me, then it would have kind of not worked out. So they couldn't tell me that I was there specifically to help her transform a belief that she had. It's like, oh, okay. He said, they said you're a transformation facilitator. I'm like, okay, I'll own that. So,
Yeah.
so that fast forwards to today. Like
Yeah.
now, I've
Yeah.
actually retired from massage therapy. I still teach yoga. I'm actually going to go teach a yoga Tai Chi fusion class right after this.
Mhm.
And I still love yoga and I love wellness and I love helping people with their physical health, but I had to expand it.
Yeah.
I had to make it bigger. And I started a podcast called Back to Me to help. I mean, it's geared to women, giving them like, think about this, think about this, think about this, giving them new ways of thinking. And it's in its fourth season and it's just up leveling. So I'm just moving on to the Inspired Choices Network. It's changing its name to Illuminate Yourself. Or no, Illuminate Your Worth. Sorry, Illuminate Your Worth. And it's going to be on 300, it's going to be a live show, 300 television stations and 80 audio platforms. What? I know, so exciting. Yeah, so, and I'm going to have a real live producer, so I don't have to do everything myself. I know that you know what it's like to do everything yourself for the podcast. So,
Yes.
yeah, so that's how I became the
Wow.
transformation facilitator. I'm
Amazing.
also
And you've
very
got
proud of
this,
it.
you've got a method. I love a girl with a method,
Mm-hmm.
like a step by step, the thriving life method. Tell me what
Yeah.
that is that you've developed.
So I gave you a little bit of a preview. You didn't know it. So it is those six components. They spell the word become: body, emotion, community, occupation, money, and engagement, which for me is your spiritual soul path. And we take those six parts and we just dig into each one without self criticism, without self judgment,
Mhm.
as a way to check in, where am I right now? Like, be so honest and clear with yourself, and you
Yeah.
don't have to share it with the world, right?
Mm.
Because this is where we start the judgment, like someone's going to think that I'm a bad person because I'm 40 pounds overweight, or I I am this, or I don't make this much money. I'm like, this is for you. This isn't for the world. This is for you. So we get a really clear picture going to each of those pieces of where you are today.
Mhm.
We also talk about where you want to be. I mean,
Mhm.
sometimes I was coaching this lady once who I asked her what made her happy, and she's like, I don't know. I'm like, what? It was the first time it had happened to me. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know what makes you happy? And she had
Mm.
been so long living for other people that
Yeah.
she had forgotten. Like, you always know what makes you happy, but she had forgotten. It took a
Mm.
while. It took an afternoon because I was doing a intensive. It took a full afternoon with her. We were at her cottage, and I'll fully own it, and a bottle of wine to to like unpack all of this stuff. And when, like, knowing that the thing that makes you happy does not have to be the thing that you do as a job,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't have to be the way you earn your money. If it is, that's a bonus. But
Mm.
your job should make you feel engaged and valued and valuable and like you're contributing, but they don't always have to line up.
Mm.
And your money doesn't always have to come from your job. this is another funny thing we have in our world, that we think we have to like work our butts off to earn lots of money. But if everybody who worked their butts off earned lots of money, everybody would be really rich, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So doesn't know, it doesn't really work
Abundance
that way.
comes in lots of different guises.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, most people think about monetary comfort and how much, and if that's something that you obsess over and it's a constant stress, then yeah, it becomes the number one thing that people worry about. But yeah, I agree with you that once you find your happy place, once you find that place of flow, once you're aligned within your energies, then the money stuff stops being the biggest, it stops being so important. It just begins to happen.
Right. Well,
That,
that flow comment is super interesting because sometimes I think because we have this idea that we need to work hard, that the
mm,
things that are natural to us and that are actually in alignment with us feel too easy. It's like, oh, that's
yeah,
too easy. That's too easy.
yeah.
Like,
Gotta
why
fight
does it have
for
to be
it.
hard?
Gotta, yeah.
Right? Come on.
Exactly. No, the things that come easy, they're the things that will bring us joy, but really bring that abundance where you are in a happy place. And then when you're in your happy place, everything begins to feel a little easier. Your spirit is lighter, your energy, your vibration is higher, your energy flow is better through your life, through your body, and therefore through your life. And so yeah, it's a key component is to connect with your passion and find that flow. And for me, obviously, the way I facilitate transformation is through understanding the chakras, through understanding the chakra system, and that's sacral chakra stuff, which is
Oh, yeah.
all good
Right.
stuff, and you have to build it up. And I love so much of what you've said has really resonated, with me, because I feel like you're saying, you just need to help people feel good about themselves and understand their inner life, understand that they have an inner world and an outer world, and they have a higher self, and they have a spirit, and they have this communication, and that the body has so much wisdom to give and can offer
Mm-hmm.
so much respite and knowledge and information and intelligence. We have so much intelligence we've got more intelligence in our kneecaps than we do in our brains sometimes. Okay, so
I remember when I was very young, I was a St. John ambulance cadet. And lesson has stayed with me. I was taking one of my courses on how to, stop bleeding and things. And
mm,
the instructor said, we think our brains are in charge. Our brains are the bosses until something happens to the body. And then we realize, oh, the brain doesn't actually get to decide. And the body has so much intelligence. And we
yeah,
think, especially as like 14 years as a massage therapist, oh my
yeah,
goodness, the body knows a lot of things. I could touch someone and an emotion would come.
mm,
And sometimes they didn't know what it was from. And I would say, it doesn't matter what it's from.
no,
Like, can you let me release it?
yeah,
Or can you help me to release it? Or does it want to release? But the chakra system, I mean, I love the chakras, obviously, because yoga and meditation. And I do a meditation now where it's from Jeffrey Allen, where I run the earth energy through my root chakra. Like I take energy up from the earth to clear out the
mm,
root chakra. And I take cosmic energy from the crown. It comes down the back, but it comes up the front. And I do, because I meditate every morning, I just do this process where I check in with each chakra. How are you feeling? Do you need a little? Do you need a little? Do you need a little? Up and up and up. And then it just whoosh, at the top of your head and it washes down the outside of my aura to give me a little shower.
yeah.
So,
No, it's
and
practice, and
I
it's
every day I do this. And sometimes when I'm on the bus and I'm feeling like this bus feels a little unsteady, I'm just going to do a little energy running, going to ground the bus down. Okay, we're good. You know.
mm, yeah, yeah. No, it's a beautiful practice that is that's the work that I do, is just trying to get people to understand and know this stuff, so that they don't live in the exterior all of the time to know that there's so much wisdom within. And as soon as you have that awareness and you have that wisdom of what's within you and what your potential is, and find out little imbalances and not judge and not go, oh no, my solar
It's
plexus
just
chakra is out of
it's just
balance. What
life.
am I going to do? It's just life. You just have a few little tricks and tips and tools, and you plug on with life. And yeah, it's so valuable to living a life of, I was going to say, of ease, and I actually am not going to change that. It is of ease when you can just know that you've got the tools and you can shift things as and when you feel like you need to, and just have that inner conversation. Um,
We
yeah,
have the same mission because I always tell people my mission is to help people understand that they are valuable and understand not by looking outside. The outside doesn't have your answers. The inside has all your answers. And knowing yourself and valuing yourself so much that when you look outside, you can see how valuable everyone else is and you can help
yeah,
them see their value.
yeah,
Because imagine a world where everybody understood how important they were and how much love there is in the cosmos and the world for every single thing that has incarnated on this
yeah,
planet.
exactly.
It would be a different place to live.
Oh, I'm so with you. Sometimes, like if you're in a really crowded place, like a train station or an airport or something like that, and you're wandering through, and there are just an international airport is one that always blows my mind because all these people, all these cultures, you don't know where anybody's from, and you walk through and you go, everybody that is passing me, these hundreds of people are all so valuable. I mean, I don't know what their story is, what their gift is. They may be an incredible neurosurgeon, they may be a healer, they may be a drug dealer. Like they could be any number of different things, but they're all just this beautiful, valuable thing. Same as like an ant. So the other day I was abroad, I was in Portugal, and we went and had a picnic somewhere, and my husband fell asleep and I was just lying in the sun, enjoying just like watching, and we dropped some crumbs out of our from our sandwiches, and there was this little ant sort of farm, ant home, ant nest underneath us. And these ants, the way they cooperated and the way the intelligence that they used in order to move all of these crumbs into, and there was quite a big bit. I dropped a crisp or a chip, as the Americans would say, like a chip onto the floor. So it's quite big. It's like sort of this big. And the way they worked it out and maneuvered it, I was like, that is just the most fascinating 20 minutes of my life, just watching ants move a crisp.
Right?
So valuable, so beautiful. And yeah, every living thing has that value.
They
And
are very industrious, those little guys.
yeah.
Yeah, and I just came back from Portugal actually in March. So good. I feel like I wanted to go back and just do
Yeah.
more. There's so much to
Eat
see.
more pasta de natas. Those little those little custard cakes
Oh
that are
yes, oh my gosh. Oh
mm,
my gosh. Yeah.
yeah,
I
dangerous.
did not lose any weight even though I
No.
walked so many places. But
Yeah.
that's not why I went. I went
No.
to experience the place, the energy of the place. And interesting. So that meditation that I told you that I do where it washes down the outside of my aura, when I
Mhm.
came back from Portugal, my aura had suddenly spread out. I'm like, how did you get so big? What's going on here? And it hasn't come back in yet. It's like,
Really?
I didn't know why I was going to Portugal, but apparently it was to expand.
Expansion. I love that. Yeah, no, I love that feeling of rising that energy and just letting it fall all around you, sort of like a big cloak or a big fountain of
Hmm.
and feeling that energy. So yeah, I wonder if I've done one of those meditations for a while. Maybe I should bring that back. I'm busy doing a series on the chakras again. Just keep going through them, keep going through
Every
them.
time you check in, they're different, right?
Yep,
So it's like
absolutely.
when you're walking through an international airport, all of those people are different. They're all different energies. All their energy has moved around and it pings off of you.
Yeah,
Even
yeah.
so, I try to be very conscious of people's energy pinging off of me, but
Mhm.
it's still going to ping off of me.
Mm.
And when you're in people's space, so I do Akashic Records and I teach yoga and I do all these things. I have to do that every day, partly for me, just to like clear out anything that I picked up in
Yeah,
error that
yeah.
I don't need to carry around.
But I love going into those kind of spaces like the airport or getting on the tube in London where everyone famously just sits there with a grumpy blank face and doesn't smile. And it's a little game that I play with myself. I sort of, as I'm going down the tube, I kind of grow, breathe in, so I like really try and grow my energy, my loving, my heart. And I get to a stage where I'm smiling because my energy is high. And then you just go around smiling at people on the tube and they don't know what to do with
So they're
themselves.
like, ah,
Ah!
it's interesting. So I'm in Toronto and the subway is the same. It's like, and Toronto is, I think, the most multicultural city in the world, the last time I heard.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
like, uh, I'm a Caucasian woman. We're pretty much in the minority. I mean, pretty much every culture you can imagine is here. And it, they all just kind of like flow through each other. And there's, little Portugal and there's little India and there's Chinatown and there's like any kind of, if you want African food, anything you want, you can find. And it's so interesting to sit on the subway. Our people on the subway are like this
Yeah, phones.
on
Yeah.
their phones,
Yeah.
not looking around, not talking, have their earbuds in so they can't hear if someone who's challenged starts yelling. Nope, can't hear anything. But I sit there with intentionally with my phone in my pocket and I'm smiling. And
Yeah.
I do kind of, I do a grounding first, like I ground the car down and then
Mhm.
I build my energy up so the people don't feel too floaty. But it's like, yes, isn't this fun? Like,
And it's lovely and just sort of like, just a random person and you just look at them, even if they're not looking at you, go, I love you. Just I'm just giving you some love. And it's just like, okay, my little mission. I don't know if that changed their day, but how can it not? Have somebody
how can it not?
intentionally shoot them with a bit of love. There you go. Have some love, have some love, have some love. Yeah. We got really off topic here. How did we get
That's
here?
okay. Where were we? I don't remember. Well,
I
we
don't
knew that
know.
we were going to go everywhere.
Yes, we did. But no, we're talking about your thriving life
Oh,
method, which
right.
you've done beautifully. But I feel like I've taken lots of your time and it's we could we could chatter like this all day long.
We
We've got
could.
so much in common in terms of what we do in our alignment. I love this. So Heather, tell people mention your podcast again so we can all go and listen to
So
that.
the new podcast is going to be on the Inspired Choices Network, and it's called Illuminate Your Worth. You can check out
Oh,
old episodes, YouTube, Spotify. Back to me. Back to me.
okay. Back to me. Beautiful. And your website, did you say that?
HeatherStewart.coach. Easy peasy.
Dot coach. I like
Oh,
that.
yeah. As soon as I
Mm.
found out there was a dot coach, because Heather Stewart, there's so many, I'm like,
Yes.
got it right away.
Yeah, perfect. That's brilliant. Um, Thank you, Heather. It's been